Welcome to the planned stage of the implementation process, a critical foundation for driving meaningful and sustainable improvement for schools. In this phase, school leaders and middle-level leaders come together to chart a strategic, evidence-informed course of action that ensures clarity, coherence, and alignment across the curriculum. This is not just about organizing content, it's about redefining how the implementation process is designed, moving away from fragmented topics towards a curriculum built on transformable concepts and deep understanding of how to provide better learning opportunities for students to have a long-lasting impact. Throughout this stage, we are going to see a series of interconnected actions that will build together to provide a well-developed, clear strategic planning documents that will help the whole school community and all stakeholders to be able to subscribe to the same vision, which is leading to a strategic and sustainable improvement. The planning stage is the fundamental step in any successful implementation process. Last week's video was focused on all the different stages of the implementation, but today we're going to focus on the plan stage. It is the stage that provides a clear vision, articulation, where goals are defined, where the context is analyzed and strategies are outlined. Effective planning is not merely a preliminary administrative step, it is the cornerstone upon which the entire implementation effort rests. If done well, it provides direction, structure, and purpose, ensuring that the proposed initiative aligns with the broader mission and values of the organization and has the necessary support systems in place to succeed. In educational settings where change impacts a wide range of stakeholders, from administrators, teachers, students, families, the planning phase becomes even more critical. I do remember when completing my MPQH certificate that the course section related to implementation process was the most valuable because it connected the theory with practice. It provided the structure that, if planned properly, we will have the desired impact. And if not planned properly and taken lightly, then the whole strategic plan will fall apart. First of all, we will try to look at a fundamental aspect, which is the purpose of the planning stage. Why is the plan stage very critical in its structure? Planning serves a bridge, so it serves to bridge the gap between a recognized need or problem and the concrete steps that will lead to improvement or transformation. Whether implementing a new curriculum, a technology initiative, or behavior management framework, the planning phase provides the blueprint for moving from idea to action. So without a solid plan, efforts can become fragmented, stakeholders may feel uncertain or uninvolved, and resources may be misallocated. At its core, planning is both strategic and operational. So when we speak about the strategic aspect of the planning, we're providing answers for two critical questions. So we define the why the change is needed, and then we define the what, which is what the intended outcomes are. And when we want to talk about the operational, then we have to define three things. We have to provide answers for the how, who, and when. So to define the how the change will be carried out, to define the who will be responsible, and to define the when each part of the plan will be executed. Once we put all the answers for those five questions together, then we are identifying the purpose of the planning stage. Let's now talk about the steps, and they are 8. The steps that will allow us and enable us to have a structured plan for the implementation process. The first step is conducting a needs assessment. As we all know, a needs assessment is the starting point of planning, and it involves identifying gaps between the current state and the desired state. So, in schools, this might mean analyzing student performance, reviewing teacher feedback, examining resource allocation, or even looking at the surveying of school climate and culture, maybe inspection reports, accreditation reports. The goal here is to develop a clear evidence-based understanding of what needs to change and why. For instance, if we are trying to have a reading achievement scores that are low across multiple grade levels, a needs assessment would involve examining the existing instructional practices, teacher preparation, student engagement levels, curriculum alignments, and support structures. This process might be both data informed and context specific, recognizing that surface level indicators often point to deeper systematic issues. So, conducting a comprehensive needs assessment helps avoid the trap of implementing trendy or one size fits all solutions. It ensures that the planned intervention is rooted in the actual needs of the school or organization and not merely in perceived problems or external pressures or trendy practices that worked elsewhere. Needs-based analysis will enable you as the school leader to have a convincing argument with your school community, showing them that the change that you are aiming to implement came from the bottom top and not only from top bottom. Collectively, looking at the evidence coming from different sources of data, you have identified a need for change, a need for a new implementation that will allow everybody to excel at what they are doing and to have a better outcome when it comes to students' achievements, attainment, and progress. The second step would be defining the vision and goals. Once the need has been identified and there is an agreement upon everybody that yes, we have a specific issue that is hindering the progress of the school and there is a need for an intervention or for the implementation, then the next step is to define a clear vision and establish measurable goals. A vision provides the aspirational destination. It's like the North Star that guides all subsequent actions, while goals break that vision down into specific, attainable, and time bounded outcomes. In the context of school improvement, the vision might be to create a more inclusive or equitable learning environment. As an example, from this, goals could be derived, such as increasing the percentages of students who have special uh, needs or diversified needs who can meet the level expectations with support or improving teacher capacity for differentiated instructions. These goals should follow the SMART framework, which is the specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bounded. This ensures that they are not only aspirational but also actionable and trackable. So, planning teams must involve a range of voices, teachers, leaders, students, and families in the visioning process to ensure shared ownership and alignment. Once we have set the goals, we have identified our vision, now we move to the third step, which is building a planning team. We all know this very well that the implementation efforts cannot succeed without the engagement and support of stakeholders. Stakeholders include anyone who is affected by or has influence over the change being implemented. So, in the educational settings, this typically includes school leaders, teachers, support staff, student parents, school board members, and community partners. Early and inclusive engagement will build the trust, ensuring diverse perspectives are considered and creates a sense of shared responsibility. Everybody will feel that we are part of this implementation process, we are part of the change, and we will definitely be part of the impact resulting to celebrate the success of this implementation process. So the planning team established with representatives from all stakeholders will serve as the hub for collaboration, communication, and decision making throughout the implementation process. The planning team must also map out stakeholder roles. Who needs to be consulted? Who needs to be informed? Who will be directly involved in implementing? And who will make decisions? So, a stakeholder map or influence interest matrix is a helpful tool in this process where we try to outline who needs to be consulted, when and with what, then who needs to be informed and when and how, and who will be directly involved in the implementation process and the levels of implementation and the authority levels as well, and who will make decisions. Once we have clarity upon those four major layers, and we outline that in the influence interest matrix, then all the involved personnel will be at ease. They will understand their role, the scope of responsibility that they have, and they will be able to plan properly for it and to be ready when the role is required in the implementation process throughout the academic year. Step four, which is establishing the success criteria. To ensure alignment and coherence throughout the implementation, the planning team will need to establish the guiding principles. These are the core values and beliefs that will drive decision making. So, in addition to the guiding principles, the team should define the success criteria that will act as the benchmarks or indicators used to evaluate whether the implementation is progressing as intended. So, success criteria will help focus attention on results and provide a basis for accountability. They can include both qualitative measures and quantitative uh, indicators as well. When we talk about the quantitative measures, we're talking about student achievement data, attendance rates, and when talking about the qualitative indicators, we are focusing on student voice or teachers' confidence. So, this step is critical to allow everyone to know what is the accountability level related to their work and what is the expected kind of output that they will achieve once successfully they implement the change. The fifth step here is looking at the context analysis. So, conducting a context analysis is a key to have the evidence based um, kind of data and to be well uh, informed about it. So, context analysis involves examining the organizational environment, its culture, its structure, the policies, the history, the resources, and capacity. A context analysis will help identify potential enablers and barriers to implementation. In a school, this might include reviewing current schedules, staffing models, instructional practices, identifying existing programs that may complement or conflict with the new initiative, understanding the community's needs, assets, and challenges. Maybe also it can involve evaluating the school's readiness for change, both in terms of motivation and capacity. And by capacity, I mean the skill set of the human resources. So, for instance, if the plan involves introducing new technologies, but the school has a limited infrastructure or internet access, then those issues must be addressed before we start with the required implementation. Now, looking at the sixth step, which is developing the implementation plan. Again, let's go to the core of this video, which is the plan stage. Okay, we started with step one, the needs analysis. We spoke about defining the vision and goals, building the planning team, establishing success criteria, conducting a context analysis to check for the readiness of the school. But at its core, there should be a plan. So this is the operational heart of the planning stage. The planning uh, here will translate the strategic vision into actionable steps. So if we would list the six main things that we need to include in the plan, it would be the activities, the timelines, the responsibilities, resources, the milestones, and risk management. Many schools, they do include the first four and they ignore the last two. But you cannot do that for one reason. We have to be realistic. We should not expect everything to be on paper to be 100% successful once implemented on ground, because we're dealing with people, with students, with teachers. So we have to understand that the human factor might create deviations. For that reason, Before we say, yes, we have a plan outlining the activities, timeline, responsibilities, and resources, we need to make sure that we specifically identify the milestones, the checkpoints which we need to have along the plan to assess the progress and whether there is a need for an intervention plan if we are not having the aiming kind of goals achieved. And the risk management, where we anticipate the challenges and we try to outline the strategies to mitigate them. This is very important, and this will help the people who are involved in the uh, implementation process to have confidence. So the plan should be also a living document that guides the day-to-day operations, but also allows for flexibility and adaptation. Some schools they use logical models, Gantt charts, implementation roadmaps to create the visual organizers and to be able to communicate the plan with the stakeholders, reminding them of the key milestones and of the breakdown of the activities and the goals along the way. Moving forward now to step number 7, which is securing resources and support. We will talk here about two different things because, as we all know, when we talk about resources, we talk about physical and human. So even the most thoughtfully constructed plan will filter without the necessary support in place. Planning must include an audit of what resources are currently available and what additional supports will be needed. As we all know, resources can be human, the staff time, the expertise, financial, the budgets and grants, or material like curriculum and technology. If we would list some of the support structures, we would mention here the professional development and training, we would mention the coaching and mentoring, time allocations for collaboration and communication platforms, planners who advocate for and secure these supports early in the process will create a planning team who has the confidence in themselves that what is needed for the plan to be successful is in place. So, resource alignment is not just about having enough, it's about ensuring the right resources are available to the right people at the right time. Moving now to step number 8, we will be talking here about the communication. As we know, it's very important to keep everybody informed. So, step 8 focuses on establishing a communication strategy. Change efforts often fail due to poor communication. During planning, a robust communication strategy must be developed to ensure that all stakeholders are informed, they're engaged, and they're aligned. So the strategy should outline key messages, audiences, the channels of communication, and the timing. Transparent and frequent communication builds trust, it reduces resilience, and creates a shared sense of urgency and purpose. It also provides a forum for feedback, which is essential for refining the plan. which takes us to step 9, which is about building a feedback and monitoring system. So the planning phase should conclude with the development of a system to gather feedback and monitor progress with the checkpoints that we spoke about earlier in the strategic plan step. So this ensures that the plan is not implemented in a vacuum, or it allows for no real-time course correction. We have to allow for real-time course correction. We have to create feedback loops to embed the monitoring mechanism and feedback from the beginning of the implementation process. So by then, the implementation becomes more agile, more responsive, and data informed. And when we speak about feedback loops, we're talking about staff surveys, student focus groups, progress monitoring tools, or data dashboards. Step number 10, which is talking about the formalizing the plan. When we want to formalize the plan, which is the last stage for the plan phase, we are looking at forming a document, a written plan in a very comprehensive, coherent, and accessible language to all stakeholders. This plan serve as a reference, a guide, and a tool for accountability. So the document should include an executive summary, the rationale and vision, goals and success criteria, implementation roadmap, roles and responsibilities, resource plan, risk management strategy, monitoring and evaluation. This document can serve as the basis for presentations to decision makers to gain final approvals and funding. So, as a conclusion, before we move to other points that are very vital uh, and strongly related to the plan phase, we have to sum up everything we spoke about so far about the steps related to the plan stage to remind ourselves that the plan stage of implementation is very important and should not be underestimated as it shapes the trajectory of the entire change process and significantly increases the likelihood of achieving desired outcomes. In schools and other organizations, planning provides the opportunity to align people, purpose, and practice. So it ensures the initiative is not only visionary, but also viable. It's anchored in real world data. It is supported by appropriate resources. It's guided by inclusive and strategic thinking. Moving forward, I would like to highlight on the key roles that the senior leaders of a school play when we talk about the plan stage of the implementation process. So the senior leaders or the senior leadership team of a school are definitely in charge of setting the clear vision and goals. They define the purpose and desired outcomes of the initiative, and they align the goals of the implementation process with the school improvement plan. Their role is also vital in the needs assessment as they look at the triangulation between data when using the surveys, the focus groups, the data reports to gather relevant information, to analyze data, and to identify the gaps and the readiness of the school uh, for the desired change. uh, Talking about stakeholders, the senior leadership team, they are in direct contact with the key stakeholders of the school community, such as parents and the community members. So they are the people who communicate this implementation process by holding meetings, creating communication channels to share the vision and to gather the input. Also, when talking about resources, they allocate resources strategically by rearranging the budget for professional development, for materials, for additional support staff. They look at the technology infrastructure, school space, the time and space that are available for the implementation. Also, they are key components when it comes to defining the success criteria and the matrices, and they define how progress and success will be measured. They can look at the short, medium, and long-term benchmarks in order to identify the matrix of improvement. And last but not least, we will talk about the implementation timeline. They can create a realistic roadmap with phases, deadlines, and responsible parties. They can plan for piloting, for review points, and full uh, scale implementation. Moving now to talk about the middle leaders of a school, we can here talk about six key components associated with their role. First, the collaboration on goal setting. As those people, they translate the whole school goals into department or grade level objectives. They co-create action plans with teams that reflect both strategic goals and classroom realities. They identify and support early adopters by pinpointing the staff who are enthusiastic or experienced with the initiative and involve them as champions or mentors. They model openness to change and create space for experimentation. They plan targeted professional development. As we all know, the middle level leaders, they coordinate with the leadership team to design the workshops, the coaching sessions, or the collaborative planning time. Also, when talking about the auditing process, they audit current practices by providing the reviewed teaching materials, schedules, and instructional methods, and they lead the curriculum maps and resource inventories. The fifth one, which is develop communication structures, as they set up regular team meeting, brainstorming, reflective gatherings, and feedback. They use tools like shared digital folders, agendas, and planning templates to streamline collaboration. Last but not least, when talking about risk management and contingency planning, the middle level leaders, they are strong in anticipating the potential challenges from resistance to workload concerns to scheduling conflicts, and they work very well with teams to identify solutions or alternative strategies earlier. So when talking about the plan stage of the implementation process, the middle leader actions complement the school senior leader action in order to have a well comprehensive plan that meets the strategic plan of the school and the realistic needs of the teachers based on the key role that they play. Let's now move to talk about an example that I do believe is relevant to all schools worldwide, from being an acceptable school to a good school to an outstanding school to a newly established school to a school having a long history of well established. We all aim for improving student attainment and progress, specifically when we talk about key subjects. So if we are looking as a practical example on, or we're looking at the plan phase in the implementation process, which aims for improving student attainment and progress in English, maths, and sciences. Let's try to dissect all the steps that we spoke about in the plan phase in the context of improving student attainment and progress. What would be the goal that we have to set as a school? It's outlined here in this slide. If we are looking at the plan phase, which is the foundation of implementation, we need, first of all, as we said earlier, to define the goal. So the goal here will be to improve student attainment and progress in English, math, and science by developing curriculum maps. So we can suggest, first of all, a model that we will deploy in order to have our curricula to be well structured. So maybe we can suggest to develop curriculum maps using concept-based curriculum, the CBC, which focuses on transferable concepts and deep understanding rather than isolated facts. And we can propose here that we will deploy the backward design, which starts with the end in mind, what students should understand and be able to do, then plans learning experiences accordingly. If we are looking now at the detailed actions and artifacts, evidence, and processes, we will be looking first of all at clarity of vision and objectives. So as a planning team constituting of senior leadership members, middle level leaders, teachers, even students and representatives from the parents, we need to speak about the action that we will do, which is establishing the purpose. We need to outline the artifacts. We need to talk about the evidence and then the process that we will follow to clarify the vision and objectives. Moving forward, we need to talk now about the second step, which is conducting the needs analysis and the baseline review. Also, here, the action will be to analyze the data, to identify the context, and then we have to collect those artifacts, maybe more, but those are the most essential. As I said earlier, this is just an example to guide educators. Then the evidence will be the baseline data, and the gaps identified between the current and desired curriculum depth. And the process will be by having departmental data deep dives, staff surveys, or learning walk observations, maybe more. It depends on the context, as I said earlier. The third thing that we will talk about here will be the staff capacity. The action would be planning professional development, identifying and training curriculum leads. The artifacts are listed, the evidence, and then the process. The fourth part will be to design curriculum mapping framework. We will identify those as the key actions, artifacts needed, the evidence that we have to collect, and then the process for us to have a proper design for a curriculum that will support improving the attainment and progress. Then we will develop the assessment plans, planning the formative and summative, having performance criteria and rubrics. Our artifacts will be the assessment blueprints, the conceptual rubrics, the examples of performance tasks. The evidence that we will collect is validated alignment between assessment tasks that will emphasize transfer and real-world application, and the process is to have assessment design workshops, moderation and validation meetings, and using of the backward design to test assessment alignment. And then we will look at The sixth step, which is establishing the monitoring and evaluation system, actions, artifacts, evidence, and processes are listed here. And then we will move to talk about the communication and engagement of stakeholders. So we will ensure that stakeholders, they understand what's changing, how is it changing, and why they are involved in it. We will create structures for feedback and transparency. The evidence will be collective data from parents, students, and major stakeholders incorporated into planning. And then the process will be curriculum, evenings, newsletters, presentations, maybe digitizing all of the material, having ongoing updates via the school platforms. So, as a summary of all what we said, looking at the categories, I do consider this table as a uh, key guidance for the planned stage of the implementation process, related to improving the student attainment and progress in English, maths, and sciences, where the category is here identified, and then all the artifacts produced are outlined as well. Maybe more can be generated for the school, depending on its context. So, as a final thought, the plan phase is not just about paperwork, it's about ensuring coherence, clarity, and commitment before instructional change begins. With concept based curriculum and backward design for this specific example that we have spoken about, it's not just on what students will do, but on what they will understand and transfer beyond the classroom boundaries. And looking at all the artifacts that are listed in this table, we are looking at correlation between artifacts that goes beyond student results only, as you can see, because it is deeper and wider than only looking at the analysis of their results, whether be it in the internal or the external benchmark assessment. So as we conclude our exploration on the plan stage, it becomes clear that this phase is far more than a preliminary checklist. It's the strategic engine that drives the entire implementation journey. When school leaders and middle level leaders invest the time to collaboratively design curriculum maps rooted in the basic uh, foundation, they set the stage for deep and meaningful implementation process that results in a long-lasting, deep impact. So ultimately, the success of the implementation process hinges on the strength of the foundational phase. A well-executed plan stage cultivates a shared sense of purpose, empowers teacher collaboration, and brings clarity to instructional expectations. It transforms vision into structured action, guiding educators with precision and flexibility. So, as we move forward into the subsequent stages of the implementation, next week on Thursday, whether it's the delivering of the instruction, monitoring the progress, or evaluating the impact, we need to remember that the depth and intentionality of the plan stage will shape every step that follows. So, when planning is done well, it doesn't just prepare the school for the change, it propels your school community towards lasting improvement in at all different levels, starting from student outcome, their achievements, the learning skills, and the leadership community.